on the metal roof. Elias gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, his eyes straining against the inky blackness that had swallowed Balete Tree Road. He was on his way to his grandmother's wake in a remote barrio, a journey he'd dreaded since childhood because of this stretch of road, infamous for its ancient, gnarled balete trees and the chilling tales that clung to them like moss. His phone had died hours ago, the signal long gone. The air grew thick, heavy with the scent of damp earth and something else, something metallic and faintly sweet, like old blood. He shivered, despite the oppressive humidity. Suddenly, the headlights flickered, then died, plunging him into absolute darkness. Elias slammed on the brakes, the jeepney skidding to a halt. His heart hammered against his ribs. He fumbled for his flashlight, his hands trembling. The beam cut through the void, revealing only the rain-streaked windshield and the impenetrable wall of trees. Then he heard it. A faint, almost imperceptible tick-tick-tick. It was the sound his grandmother used to describe, a sound that meant an aswang was near, its elongated tongue tapping as it sought out its next victim. He dismissed it as the rain, or perhaps a loose part in the jeepney, but the sound persisted, growing louder, closer. He tried the ignition again, desperately. Nothing. The tick-tick-tick was now unmistakably outside, circling the vehicle. It sounded like something dragging itself, something heavy and wet. He pressed himself against the seat, his breath catching in his throat. A shadow detached itself from the gloom, moving slowly past his window. It was too tall, too gaunt, its limbs impossibly long. He squeezed his eyes shut, praying, reciting every prayer he knew. When he dared to open them, the shadow was gone. But then a new sound, a soft, mournful cry, like a baby. It came from the dense foliage just beyond the road. Elias's blood ran cold. He knew this trick. The Tianak, a demonic infant, used its cries to lure unsuspecting travelers into the woods. He clamped his hands over his ears, trying to block out the agonizing wails, which grew more desperate, more human, with each passing second. He heard a faint scratching on the roof, then a soft thud against the side of the jeepney. He dared not look. The crying stopped abruptly. Silence, a terrifying, absolute silence broken only by the relentless drumming of the rain. Then, a voice. It was soft, melodic, and strangely familiar. Elias, Anak, why do you hide? It was his grandmother's voice, his Lola. But his Lola was dead. He felt a primal scream clawing at his throat. It's cold out here, Anak, the voice continued, now right beside his window. Let your Lola in. He saw a pale, skeletal hand press against the glass, its fingers long and bony, tipped with black, jagged nails. He could see the faint outline of a face, eyes glowing with an unnatural, hungry light. It was his grandmother's face, but stretched, distorted, a grotesque mockery. He scrambled for the door lock, but his hands were slick with sweat, fumbling. The hand on the glass began to scratch, a high-pitched grating sound that made his teeth ache. Lola misses you, Elias, the voice purred, closer now, as if right outside his ear. He could feel a cold breath on his neck, smelling of decay, and that same sickly sweet, metallic scent. He closed his eyes again, tears streaming down his face. He felt the jeepney rock, as if something heavy had climbed onto the hood. The scratching intensified, and then, with a sickening crack, the windshield began to spiderweb. He heard a wet, slurping sound from above, followed by a low, guttural growl. The air in the jeepney grew heavy, suffocating. He could feel the presence, immense and terrifying, right outside. He didn't know how long he stayed there, frozen in terror, listening to the sounds of something feasting on the roof of his jeepney, something that wore his grandmother's voice like a shroud. When the first faint light of dawn finally pierced the dense canopy, the sounds had ceased. Elias slowly opened his eyes. The jeepney was still. The rain had stopped. He looked up, his gaze drawn to the shattered windshield. There was nothing on the roof, no sign of the creature, but smeared across the cracked glass, just above his head, was a single, dark, viscous handprint, and clinging to one of the shards, a single, long black hair. He never made it to the wake. He abandoned the jeepney and walked for hours until he found a small village, his mind a fractured mess of fear and disbelief. He told his story, but the villagers only nodded, their faces grim. They knew. Everyone knew about Balete Tree Road. To this day, Elias avoids that road, but sometimes, in the dead of night, when the wind howls just right, he swears he can still hear it. That faint, almost imperceptible tick, tick, tick. And sometimes he hears a voice.